Another reason why I still like Polkadot in 2026, even though nothing I say is financial advice, is because of the activity. Now, I'll talk about the price later on in the video, and I'll talk about why I'm still hypothetically thinking about $50. But even besides that point, a recent achievement that I think is pretty cool when it comes to things regarding Polkadot is something called AccuRast, right? Now, this recently launched the mainnet, and it launched with 169,000 smartphones, which were allegedly powering a global network, basically. Now, people may be thinking, like, who really cares about that? Well, we got to consider the origin of this project, right? It initially began on Kusama, which is Polkadot's canary network, and then later on it moved on to Polkadot, which we saw recently, the mainnet of it. Now, people may be thinking, how does this even have any sort of significance? Well, I think it kind of indicates this sort of whole vibe of Polkadot, because when we take a look at Kusama as a canary network to Polkadot, a lot of people like to tell me no one really cares about that, but it plays an integral role, right? Because usually projects that want to launch on Polkadot, sometimes they start off with Kusama and later on they move on to Polkadot. Polkadot's just kind of like the main thing, whereas Kusama, usually people do it to test out projects. It's easier to make changes on, and also on top of that, it's supposedly cheaper to rent building space as well when compared to Polkadot, so a lot of people just kind of start off there, and then eventually they later move on to Polkadot. But then oftentimes people disregard Kusama. They think it's a little bit useless because they just think about Polkadot. But I think this kind of validates sort of the significance of Kusama and the role it kind of plays for Polkadot. But yeah, I've never heard about this project before, but to me, if something good happens to Polkadot, I'll be a fan of it. But even besides that as well, as of right now, clearly, Bitcoin's having a pullback, altcoins, naturally, a lot of them are also having a pullback. And when it comes to Polkadot, it's just not doing the best as of right now. But still, even despite all that, people like to ask me, why do I hypothetically still think about $50? Well, it's because, again, I still like the activity when it comes to Polkadot as to what's going on. And usually projects that seem to have activity sometimes don't get forgotten about if there is hypothetically an altcoin season. Now, we're around currently 26 times lower than that point, right? $50. And people like to tell me, okay, why do I think about that? Well, it's because I have to sometimes take a look at the market cap it would have at that point. Because at that point, actually, if we were to consider the current circulating supply as of right now, at $50, the market cap would be around 80 billion. So basically a little bit less than Dogecoin's all-time high market cap in 2021, years ago. It doesn't maybe hypothetically sound so ridiculous in my perspective, but here's the thing as well. Polkadot, I think, is a project that sort of has a stronghold, right? That sort of has this kind of number one position within the niche that it's in. Now, what is that? It has, I think, the number one position for the niche of interoperability, which is basically the niche of trying to connect blockchains together. I mean, seriously, the way you take a look at it is this. Who's going to overtake Polkadot within its own sector? Cosmos, I don't think, is going to do that. It's just way smaller in terms of market cap. Or should I say it's a native token called Atom. If I take a look at Axelar, I don't see Axelar even overtaking Cosmos, let alone something like Polkadot. So this is sometimes the perspective that I have. Now, Polkadot by no means is going to become hypothetically the biggest. No, I don't think about it that way. I don't think it will be, actually. But within its own niche, it's just the most popular. That's the way you take a look at it. It's kind of hard to eclipse that sometimes. This is the way you take a look at Polkadot. It just kind of has that, I guess, number one position in terms of popularity within the niche that it's in. And I think it kind of reflects it too in terms of the amount of holders, right? I mean, there's over 1 million holders even as of right now. The thing is this as well. If the altcoin space isn't doing the best, it's not a time where I just want to give up like that, because for me, I like it if, let's say, temporarily sometimes things may not be doing the best, because I'm looking to dollar cost average. Now, granted, if things did become better, I'm not going to complain about that, but I don't mind for dollar cost averaging purposes if, let's say, hypothetically, something is kind of temporarily speaking low. My kind of analogy, even though it's unrelated to this, is that if I walk inside a store and I see a discount, I'm going to like it more than if there isn't a discount, right? It doesn't mean that I don't like the product, but I'd be happier if there was a discount. This is my perspective. Because why not, right? Why would I not like a discount when it comes to buying a t-shirt or something like that? This is the principle sometimes that I do have. Also, people sometimes like to tell me that we're already in January and we're closing in on February. Why hasn't the altcoin space done much? Well, I don't have any control over that. The only thing I can do is control myself. And that's what I'm going to do. Personally, I just stay consistent with the projects that I believe in. I just hold and I just wait. And that's literally about it. I mean, it's kind of like a boring strategy. I'm totally aware of that. And people like to tell me that it's just very boring overall. Again, I'm totally aware of that as well. But this is just the way I do things, right? I'm not going to focus on things every 5 or 10 minutes. That's not my style. When I like a project, when I like the vibe, when I like what they're doing, I just stay consistent and just hold over a period of time. That's it. I'm not about trying to find exactly what could happen at an exact moment in time. That's not me. What I do is I just literally believe in a project, I hold and I wait, that's it. Whatever happens, happens. Now, granted though, of course, I think about certain points, like hypothetically, I think about $50 or something like that. But who knows what could happen during an altcoin season? That's the thing. It's just a thought in my mind. But only time will tell as to what could happen during an altcoin season. That's it. But the reason why I think about it is that, again, just because of the market cap at that point around 80 billion, considering current circulating supply, like we gotta just think about this sometimes, right? At least I do. Dogecoin exceeded over 80 billion in 2021 in terms of market cap. What's more revolutionary, Dogecoin or this? Now, granted, I get it. Dogecoin has more fans, right? There's more popularity. But DOT has over 1 million holders. And the thing is this. There's over 600 million owners as of right now within this space. Back then, there was around 300 million. And I think the argument sometimes when people like to tell me that there's more competition when it comes to Polkadot, I sometimes disagree with that because my perspective is that, sure, there's more projects right now, but it doesn't mean that there's going to be more that are directly competing when it comes to Polkadot. Because how many of another version of Polkadot really popped up in terms of the popularity and also the fundamentals? I can't really find any. That's my perspective. Back then, I thought about Cosmos and Polkadot. Now I think about Axelar a little bit, and when it comes to Cosmos and Polkadot, but we're not talking about like 30, 40 different sort of Cosmos archetypes that kind of appeared from back then. So yes, there's more projects overall, but in terms of the actual competitors within the niche that Polkadot is in, I don't feel like there's too many. So if there's more owners than before, yet the amount of actual good fundamental projects actually more or less kind of stayed the same in terms of interoperability when compared to back then in 2021, what would happen, right? If let's say hypothetically there was a tension, it might not be spread out too much. It might be more concentrated just because there simply isn't that many options. It's like, for instance, if I'm choosing between, I guess, this t-shirt or another t-shirt, and there's only 2 options, there's just not that many options. I'm either choosing this or that one, right? I'm using an Abercrombie t-shirt, by the way, but I'm just saying. This is my mindset sometimes. So, yeah. All I can do is wait. What can I do about this? Right? I'm just like one out of hundreds of millions of other individuals within this space. Like, I can't do anything about it. So, yeah, that's just what I'm going to do. So, personally, when I see this project not doing the best, I mean, yeah, I feel it. What can I do about it? You know, that's the way to take a look at it. But I'm still a fan because I still like the fundamentals and you know, things could hypothetically change sometimes, right? Because I just don't think I've seen altcoin season. So I'm just still doing my thing, waiting, and that's about it, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you all have a very nice day. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll see y'all on the next video.